We did notice that the top-down leadership seemed to be predominant throughout all of the companies that we talked to, but even though it was top-down, there seemed to be a great respect for each of the CEOs of each of the companies. They seemed to, all the employees and the presenters that we talked to seemed to have a fondness for them and to really think that they were doing a good job. We didn't hear a critical word, I don't think, of any of the CEOs that were discussed.
Cisco had the majority of their organization centered in multiple buildings across Silicon Valley, whereas Fairmont, on the other hand, actually had a large presence in Canada. So from an organizational standpoint, there was some variance there.
Companies like Network Associates, for example, had a very much of a startup feel. It didn't feel like they definitely had lines in between the organizational segments. They definitely did have organizational segments, but it just felt like that organization, because they're trying to learn their business and understand where they are, shared a lot more information in between.
With the range of Intel having 78,000 employees down to Network Associates having 3,800, there's definitely various levels of departments within the structure.
The organizational structure of each company is pretty much all across the board, top down. Sun is pretty relaxed in their office environment, very casual, jeans, khakis. Collaboration with their offices, with the iWork, they could sit down to different individuals and work and communicate that way. Also, they can also choose a closed door office.
Very interesting to see Fairmont's organization that 85% of their people are frontline colleagues. So that was an interesting organizational structure from the sense of how many people are being managed by such a small contingency of managers.
One company in particular, Intel, Karen Cobb actually mentioned she doesn't even know the structure of the marketing department. So some are very defined, some are not, but from our perspective, the CEO is the leader of the organization, relying on an executive team, and then they have departments underneath.
Sun Microsystems was founded in 1982 by 4 graduates from Stanford University. Scott McNeely, one of the original founders, is the current CEO of the company. Sun's headquarters are located in San Jose, California, and there are 35,000 Sun employees worldwide. One of Sun's newest corporate initiatives is the iWork program, which allows employees to work either from home or satellite offices. Sun produces servers and microprocessors and is the creator of the Java programming language for the Internet.
I thought it was very interesting that in every company we visited, obviously it was important that the bottom line financially is critical. The whole reason these folks are in business is to gain market share. But even that being the case, I thought it was very interesting also to see that their communication culture and their corporate culture was very important to them.
Sun Microsystems is what you'd call an open communication environment. One of the things that struck us so impressive with Sun was they actually took time to greet their customers. They spend a lot of time on conference calls, but for the most part, in the first, second, or third meeting, they actually make an effort to go out and talk with the customers.
With Network Associates, they didn't really articulate a specific communication strategy to us, but they definitely talked about how messages did need to be communicated. Their communication culture almost sounded more like they were communicating primarily to outside of their organization and then allowing those messages to trickle down in formats like email.
With John Chambers, CEO of Cisco, he holds a quarterly meeting via video conference to his employees, to all employees, sharing information on what's going on within each department. And so that, to our group, appears to be a very strong vehicle for spreading the information and sharing what's going on within the organization.
One thing that was impressive about Cisco is that they did a cross-departmental switch between the head of the VPs so that they could learn the different departments and get them trained not only in one area of the business but also another area that needed to be strengthened on.
Fairmont Resorts had a very open communication model from what we could tell. They did use their intranet, but they also had a lot of face-to-face meetings on a daily basis because, again, the staff that they have is concentrated heavily in the front line. And the majority of those people do not have computers, do not sit at a desk on a daily basis. So there's daily team meetings every morning, updates regarding particular products or selling, things like that.
It was very important how they relate to one another. It was very important how they treat their employees. It was very important even the proximity in their work environments. So even though bottom line is the bottom line, it was very interesting to see that they care about other things as well.
Cisco Systems was founded in 1984 and has 35,000 employees in offices worldwide. Cisco's corporate headquarters is in San Jose, California, and John Chambers is their current CEO. Cisco is a Fortune 100 company and an industry leader in the production of hardware that powers the internet. Along with hardware, IP phones and wireless networking are two of the new technologies that Cisco is currently involved with. During the current economic downturn, Cisco has remained profitable, posting positive revenues for the third quarter of 2003.
From an ethics and values perspective, all of the companies that we went to gave some great information about the values that they have as an organization, and also some great information about how ethics is communicated throughout the organization. At Sun Microsystems, for example, they were talking about how all of their ethics are posted on their intranet for internal employees to be able to view. And there are options for people that work within the company to be able to report if there are ethics violations going on. And that was the same at several of the other companies that we saw as well.
Another common thread that seemed to run through each of these corporations was the longevity that many of the employees that we spoke with had. Most all of them had been there quite some time, with I think a couple of exceptions at Network Associates. Even the general manager of the Fairmont Hotel had come up through the ranks of having been in food services and now the general manager of the hotel. So they seem to respect the idea of promoting from within.
From an Intel perspective, very interesting to see how you mirror consistency in your organization with a whole marketing scheme. I mean, their value with their brand from a marketing perspective is that it needs to be consistent. There's quality checks to make sure that the message that they're communicating to people from outside of their organization is always the same. So they very much value the brand that they have as Intel.
It's definitely apparent that they all are successful, growing, thriving companies, and they want to give back to the community that they belong in. So, you know, for example, Cisco has a network academy, and they are trying their very best to bridge the gap of the digital divide and offer training on technologies and the new innovations that they're providing. Each company mentioned their commitment to their local community, and they all have their various programs in place.
With Fairmont, from an ethics and values perspective, they also were leveraging the intranet portal piece as well, so that people could see that information if they could access it, access their portal. But also from a values perspective, interesting to hear them talk about being part of a larger organization, about how they've had to change their values, and I think they've done a really successful job of trying to feel like they are part of a larger group with the Canadian Pacific hotels and really be able to leverage that partnership to create some corporate values that everybody feels very comfortable around while providing great guest service.
Intel was founded in 1968 and employs 78,000 people in locations worldwide. While they produce a variety of technology products for the computing and communication industries, it is the marketing of their microprocessors that has helped make Intel one of the 10 most recognizable brands in the world. Intel's corporate headquarters are located in Santa Clara, California, and Craig Barrett is the company's CEO. The recent introduction of the Centrino chip announces Intel's initiative into the wireless networking market.
From an e-commerce perspective, some of the organizations shared very specific information regarding their e-commerce practices, and for other ones, we have a lot of great information that we got from them about kind of where they fall in the supply chain. For example, Sun told us that they are using an Oracle ERP system to get real-time data on their organization, and one of the interesting comments when we were there was them talking about how their new business solutions philosophy of bringing businesses at the beginning of a process when businesses are trying to develop things is trying to push them ahead in the supply chain. So really they're trying to be able to understand the entire supply chain for the organizations that they're working with.
Cisco uses e-commerce for the majority of their sales. We quoted in our presentation in class, and they actually mentioned this on site when we were talking with them, that 90% of their sales come via their intranet channel. This is up from 40% a few years ago. So they're really using the web presence and the website as much as possible and channeling these customers into that.
And at the Fairmont Hotel where we stayed, they have Cisco wireless hubs, which they are one of the leading hotels in the industry that's providing this networking and providing wireless access in their main lobbies and various areas around the hotel. So they, as a hotel, as a different industry, they're providing wireless to their customers, and it's actually a value in booking your reservation at a Fairmont hotel versus a competitor.
From the Intel perspective, they didn't really specifically talk about ERP, but it's interesting because they are in the manufacturing section of the supply chain. They canceled their consumer marketing division probably about a year ago, they shared with us. And they are really in a process where they have to be able to get the information from other organizations. So they didn't talk specifically about their structure, but from an e-commerce perspective, they really are required to be as efficient as possible in order to be able to help other organizations manage their information and create things through their supply chains.
Network Associates began as McAfee Associates in 1989, and its headquarters are in Santa Clara, California. Network Associates is a provider of security and availability solutions for e-business. Network Associates' major products include the McAfee line of Hope antivirus software, Sniffer products for enterprise-level antivirus detection, and Magic Solutions software for asset tracking, change management, and help desk. Network Associates has grown to a company of over 3,800 employees, and their current CEO is George Semenek.
As for the new communication technologies, wireless is certainly the latest innovation. We have examples for most of the companies we visited that they are really making an effort to tap into that market and become a leader.
I see Intel growing steadily, personally. And as we talk about this and we hear different feedback, that's probably what you hear across the board. They, again, have a core product strategy that is in demand as the PC market increases. So I see them growing steadily with Moore's Law, obviously creating smaller chips, but their market share increasing as they move forward.
It was very interesting to note that many of the CEOs of these companies were not necessarily management type people. They actually started and founded the companies on the technologies that they now sell.
Fairmont, they're ahead of their time with what they're doing with wireless and also with the high-speed internet that they're doing in the hotel rooms.
At Sun, the whole smart card innovation, with everyone carrying the smart cards now, has really changed the whole organizational structure and the way that everyday living looks like if you're an employee at Sun. So that was very interesting technology to see in terms of how the impact has happened to the business.
Fairmont Hotels and Resorts Incorporated is a luxury hotel management company with 41 locations in the U.S., Canada, Barbados, Mexico, and Bermuda. In October 2001, the company was spun off from Canadian Pacific Limited, and their current CEO is William Fatt. Fairmont strives to be the luxury group market segment leader for each of its locations. In-room high-speed internet connections and Wi-Fi connectivity have been installed in several properties. Fairmont offers a range of luxury amenities, and their President's Club personalizes services for repeat guests.
Which company I would like to work for the most would be Cisco. I like the structure that they had, how established they were. They were branching off into a new market of wireless and telephony. And they also, by the presenter and the different employees that we came into contact with, felt very valued as employees, and they felt very satisfied to be working there. And you could just tell that it was an environment that was productive and an effective one for employees to be at.
I would like to work for Intel. With my marketing and communication background, they're certainly established in their product line, in their brand, and what they're offering to consumers, and it's recognizable. They noted that they're in the top 10 as most recognizable brand worldwide, and to me, that sets them apart from the rest, and that's a company I'd like to associate myself with.
I think my number one pick would be the Fairmont Hotel. I was just so impressed with those individuals. Number one, each and every one of them seemed to enjoy their work so much. And I don't think that was just a put on. I think they each genuinely loved what they did and what they do. And I don't think that is necessarily the case for everybody we talk to. But their love for what they do just came through. When they gave us the tour of the hotel, those guys were just eating it up. They were just enjoying every little thing that they were showing us. And I think it says that they not only love what they do, but they love the company they work for as well.
If I wanted to stay in the IT business, I would probably pick Cisco, only because I really appreciated the communication structure of the organization. I like the intranet. I like that they focus on technology to facilitate communication between departments within the organization. I liked, for example, that you can actually look and define where an employee is in an org structure, who you're speaking to. You can network through the organization using a web-based tool and then use that to actually go out and speak with people within the organization. That was very impressive to me. Network Associates. The culture at Network Associates is very similar to the company that I left about 6 months ago. It was a startup organization. We were flying by the seat of our pants. Ironically, I felt very comfortable within that organization and listening to the feedback of what they were saying and listening to the CFO talk and kind of walking around. The culture is very similar. The communication strategy was similar. The fact that they're trying to reinvent themselves was similar. So I felt comfort from that standpoint, but it still gave me that same tinge of ambiguity.
Sun, just for the fact that they're in a very unstable place right now, financially, and also with their CEO being so, set-minded. I think that they would have to have a reorganization in order for that company to start taking a different spin.
I don't feel I'd like to work for Network Associates. I feel they were a little undefined in their strategies and their corporate procedures and the way they do business inside the company. They definitely are being aggressive with their marketing campaigns, but I just feel that the two should be in sync.
I think it's kind of the consensus among each person in our group that Network Associates seems to be the one that doesn't win the prize when it comes to wanting to work there. I think that largely has to do with just their recent turnovers and changes in leadership and some of the uncertainty and the instability that seems to exist there at the company. But I want to give them a chance and see what they do with their new initiatives.
In my opinion, the future of the companies that we saw on our trip is really attached to the economic climate of Silicon Valley. I think one of the most important things to know is that many of the businesses have great core competencies. Intel is the giant for creating microprocessors. Cisco has a huge market share in routers and switches, and they're really getting their new corporate cultures from being able to acquire new businesses that are doing new technology. So as the economic climate allows new technology to be able to be created, that's where Cisco and Intel are going to be able to get into new businesses.
As for the Fairmont Hotel, I think it was very clear that they're a leader in their industry as far as technology is concerned and what they're taking advantage of. And so I think they are in a growing stage and they're in a development stage. They're really analyzing what their customers need, and technology for the business travelers is one of the main reasons for booking with the Fairmont. So I really think they've already been an established organization since the early 1900s, and now they're staying in line with what's going on in the industry and really I guess focusing on the customer demand.
Cisco is definitely gonna keep going up in the market and being a top leader that they have been, just because they know what they're good at. They know that when they take over a company, not to break the company down, but let them do what they've been doing best.
From Sun Microsystems, for example, we see a diversified strategy. They're going into multiple markets. Rather than just supplying the IT industry now, they're looking at having a small amount of market share in each different category of the business market. They're going to go into providing solution-based services for clients, which is very different than what they've done in the past 10 years. So I think we'll see them more from a consultative standpoint in the future.
Obviously, to become a CEO of a major corporation takes strong leadership, and I think the thought that went through my mind every company we visited is what are the attributes of these leaders. And obviously a leader has to be charismatic, has to communicate well, and has to, I believe, have a certain level of integrity and humility at the same time.
From a management standpoint too, I thought that John Chambers was a strong leader. He exudes confidence and he exudes a capacity to lead people just by doing small things like having a breakfast for his employees each month. He takes the time to do the little things that really matter across all levels of an organization. I thought that was very impressive.
But overall, I think all of them have really tried to leverage the strengths that they have in their individual organizations and have created structures that are trying to make the best possible business model for them.